Happy Halloween, dear mortals, and welcome to Code or Not to Code. Underneath this terrifying mask is, of course, me, Eva. And as always, I'm very happy to be here today. And I'm here with Stefan. How are you doing?
I'm glad it's just you.
Oh, I forgot my little hood. This is even more terrifying, huh?
Ooh.
Like this. Ooh.
Mysterious.
I know. So mysterious. I love it. Yeah, this is a little bit difficult to breathe underneath. Welcome to the show. If you are new, the two of us meet every other week and we code live on stream here with you. So our experience levels vary. So if yours do as well, I'm sure there'll be something for pros like Stefan and noobs like me alike to learn something on this show. We have been working on our Nullable Reference Types migrator tool. And that we've been building here. That was quite a long name. And the problem was that the MSBuild-Workspace doesn't allow us to set the compilation option. So last time we built our own project builder to add the nullable reference property into the CS proj. And if you're interested in how we did that, please feel free to head to our YouTube channel and we can watch all of our previous episodes right there. And you can also see on our GitHub page all of our different social media. So please, before we get into the coding part, take a minute to follow us on all of them or any of them you like. We always love to connect with you. And also it just feels good when you have a new follower. Feels very nice. So please do that if you have the time. I will also remind you later, don't worry. I'm like quite on it with those things. But yeah, cool. So, and also, yeah, so we also make a lot of promises on our stream. If you're a regular, you will know that we also keep them always. So I said last time I'm going to wear something weird for like the Halloween spooky season, and I did. And we also promised last time that we're going to bring our trivia section back. And today, actually, we also have like a tiny little flashback to one of the things that we used to do a lot. And namely, we will have a little bit of news flash section as well, right? Is that right? A little bit.
Yes, a little one, because last week, JetBrains announced that Rider and WebStorm now both come with non-commercial users. And these, so free for non-commercial users.
Woo!
And these include learning, content creation, open source, and hobby development, I guess, which applies all to us as well.
That's really awesome. Like we've been, because we always do like this sort of pair programming. So we've tried quite a lot of IDEs and especially this sort of like feature where you can like code live on the same project, but with two people. And I think both of us are pretty big Rider fans at the moment, aren't we? So this is like quite awesome for us. And I guess you'll be seeing it a lot in our stream. So yeah, if you're interested in trying it out, also feel free to ask us any questions. Because yeah, I guess we have a little bit of experience with it. All right, but now the long-awaited trivia section.
Speaking of, because in last session Eric gave us the feedback, we omitted. I think we did this like for all of our nullability sessions. Then we omitted it for one, and it was missed immediately. Yeah, and Eric, don't worry at all. I guess that's why we record all of the sessions for later employment.
Yeah, exactly. We can bring back the GitHub page, and then you can. No, I guess Eric has seen it a couple of times. Yeah. But yeah, have fun at your celebration, and we'll hopefully see you next time. And you can always again head to our YouTube channel, so you don't miss a thing, because that would be terrible. But yeah, have a great evening, and see you soon. Reed.
Trivia, cool. Well, we're still in the context of null. But we're also going a bit in the context of argument validation. Let's say I have a class. What's our class doing? We have our C# project builder. And our C# project builder has a static factory method, which returns a C# project builder, and we call it like from file. We see that's something similar that we built last time. And we can say here now string file path. Let's bring this into one line. And let's return a new C# project builder. Yeah, well, implementation details don't matter too much. But what you usually do when, let's assume this is part of a library. And this library could be maybe used in your company internally in several projects, or could also be on NuGet for the whole world, on nuget.org for the whole world to use. And usually in publicly accessible methods, what is good practice to do if you pass in a reference type that is indeed not annotated with null, so you don't expect this to be null, what you usually do is, well, a null check and say if this is null, then throw a new argument. There's a special exception, the argument null exception, because maybe later on, let me also build, just to highlight this, little constructor that takes a string file path. And maybe in that constructor, we now maybe want to do something with that file path. So we say file path dot length. Doesn't matter what we do, it just matters that we do something with it. And if we were not to validate that, and let's see here, we do an example for a consumer. We could use this C# project builder. Builder equals project builder.from file. And yeah, what if they pass in null? Now, if they have nullable reference types enabled, of course, they get a warning. Well, they could also have this feature not enabled. But if I do nullable warnings disable, I will that's nullable disable warnings. I will then afterwards, for our library code, enable it again. Restore. Because in our library code, we have full nullable reference types. And now what the user could get is then a null reference exception. Object reference not set to an instance of the object. And this is happening very late. And maybe this could even be even later when we use a method of this C# project builder. Maybe this is not dereferenced in the constructor, but way later. So it's this programmer mistake that we pass in something now, which should never be, should surface as early as possible. So then it's usually good practice for public methods. If it's like internal or private methods, we don't necessarily need to do this. If we have nullable reference types, the warnings and the annotations enabled, because then we get warnings and maybe we treat them as warnings as errors. But it's our code and we consume our code, so we have full control over letting the warnings not slide and getting doing it correct. But if it's a public method that may be published via some library, via nuget.org or any NuGet feed, what if we don't control the consumer? The consumer could disable warnings or just ignore them, maybe with the null forgiving operator or the damn it operator. But then they get very late this null reference exception. So what's better is to actually throw a argument null exception. Argument null exception also, we can also pass a name of the name of the argument that was null. So now what the user gets very, very early, or as early as really possible, just when calling this method, argument null exception, value cannot be null. And we also get the name of this argument that we set to null, so that the user knows argument exceptions, because an argument null exception, if we go to source.net, argument null exceptions are deriving from argument exceptions. And argument exceptions are usually programmer mistakes. You passed in something that was not expected to be passed in.
Okay.
And now there is many ways how to check this for null. For example, the classic way we could say equals null.
Yeah.
If you remember, it could be that type, well, string in that case does, but string is a little bit a special case in the .NET runtime. If this wasn't a string, but our custom reference type, where we also overlaid the equality operator, then if you remember, this could do a little bit more than just a null check, because we call into this equality operator, and well, in there definitely should sooner or later a null check be happening, but it's not as pure as a null check necessarily. To get the very pure null check, we could cast this to object. And now we have the pure null check, because now, regardless of whether reference types this is and whether this custom reference type has overloaded the equality operator or not, now we will be doing a raw null check. What we could also do is on object, there is a method reference equals. So we could also pass in this file path reference and compare this with null. That's still, we still get the null argument null exception if we pass in null. That's still the very same argument null exception. Maybe let's also create a builder 1, builder 2, where we don't pass in null, but let's say an empty string. We see that we actually do call the second builder as well, and we fail at the second line. Maybe to highlight this, we can also do console.writeLine print in a 1. So we first get the 1 and then the exception. So we see that this one is good, this one is bad. And this is really doing a reference check. Also an object, there is just an equals. So we could also say file path, we could also do this equals method, which then in turn does an equality check on the implementation. So this is not necessarily a pure null check if I remember correctly. What you could also do is use an equality comparer. So there's an equality comparer. I'm just saying here comparer, equality comparer dot default. Equality comparer is generic, so we would use the equality comparer of string, and we get the default equality comparer of this type, with which we can also then do an equals check, and again have our very same null check. Likewise, on object, we have the object.equals method and also the object.reference equals to do a reference check. There is also a reference equality comparer. And this reference equality comparer has an instance. This one is non-generic because the reference equality comparer doesn't really care about what type that is, as long as it's a reference type, because it just checks if those references really are equal. And we could use that as well to do our check against null. So now we drifted a little bit on null checks for argument null, or for argument null validation into the base class library. There's also more ways how you could do this via the language. We saw already there is null, but this came rather late in the language. C# 8, 9, I always forget. No, I think is not null. This came in C# 9, is now 6, 7 something. I can't quite recall. What we could do previously is checking it if this is an instance of a certain type. So we could, for example, do something like this. But usually then you also give this. So we basically check, well, this is technically used for a type check. So we could check if this is system.type. We could do something like this. But we can also, if we use the same type that we already know it is, then it's basically a null check. What you can also do with this kind of null, well, this really is a type check.
Okay.
This really is a type check, but we can also use it as a null check. What we can do is then also give it an identifier. I call this now not null. So if this check succeeds, so if this is not null, actually, well, this is in this case it's wrong because the throw must be now here because I kind of inverted the logic. So if this is not null, now we also have then string validated as being not null, and we could also use that. This is usually you could also see this pattern. What if you pass in an object? So we could pass in any object and then check, hey, is this object really a string? And now this not null is really of type string. So using this kind of type check, it's both a type check but also a null check. In our case, that's really a bit of overkill because we only want to do a null check. There is also before there is not null came around, what you could have done, there was something like pattern matching. We could also do this, which is an empty pattern. Now checking. So we're using the file path is, now again, we have our logic. So from earlier, if we pass in an empty string, that's not null. If we pass in null, that fails. So we get the one, but then the exception. And the check is now, this basically says, is this something? So is this an instance of, well, string in this case? Is this something? If it's null, then this check will fail. It's very rare that you see something like this, the empty pattern. We could also check what you can do with the patterns. You could check, hey, is the length greater than 0? You could do, am I using that wrong? Can never match the provided pattern. An expression of type string is, it cannot be less than 0. No, it can't. But is it greater than 0? My bad. I was using the wrong comparer. For example, I could have logic like, hey, at least I need to pass in something that has at least a length of 1. So with that, we could also disallow. Empty strings. Well, now argument null exception wouldn't fit anymore. Now this would be just an argument exception with a message like string cannot be empty or something like that. So that we say, okay, we now get, if I pass in just A, it's good. But if I pass in an empty string, now we get string cannot be empty.
Yeah.
And this is what we can do with pattern matching. But this pattern matching, this is also inherently doing a null check. Checking if we can actually take a look at the code that gets emitted. So we see that what this pattern is compiled to, it's doing a null check, and then is the length greater than 0. And inherently, if we just want to do the null check, we could do this empty pattern. And now this is really the equivalent to which came later in the language is not null. And those two are the same.
So you said this like pattern matching, you see it rarely. Did you ever use it?
Well, the empty pattern. The empty pattern now you see rarely because in the later language you now get the is not null.
Okay, but
the pattern matching itself, I think we used actually in our code.
We did?
Yes.
Really?
In the
my brain is like
interceptor locator.
Oh my goodness, really?
Unless we did. I have this deja vu. Did we not?
No.
No? Well, maybe we did not indeed. Then I'm mixing it up with, because I thought this is how we checked the attribute.
Oh.
Because this attribute has a file path, a line, and a character. No, you're right. We did not.
Oh, at least something. I thought I'd forgot.
Well,
and I'm sometimes worried about me forgetting like everything. every single episode. It's like, what am I going to do when I get old? I'm just not going to remember anything anymore. Or am I going to remember better? Practice makes perfect. Probably not.
Yes, we do. I'm afraid we do.
No, that's not quite the same.
Well, it's not, because we also do a list. Well, we do a list.
Yep.
We do a list pattern, but also
Okay.
then the object pattern. I'm not sure
All
what
right.
it's called.
I can
So we
still forgive
do a
myself
combination.
because it doesn't look the same. So maybe that's
We
why.
don't you're right. We don't do exactly
Yeah.
that. We do that within the list pattern. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
Oh, that's good. We can be both right.
That's nice.
Coming back to the null check. Now what we see is that that is always kind of a two-liner. We have the check for null. Let's go back to the old example. We pass in something, and if we pass in null, then this should result in an argument exception. We do want to hit this line, hello world. So as expected, when we pass null, we fail. And let's turn this again to an argument null exception. Yes, but this is kind of a two-liner. So this always, what if you get in many arguments here and you want to check them all for null, then we always have a bit of we have like a block of code that's always checking. Since a throw, that's just a one-liner, we could omit the braces here and then have multiples. But it's still a bit verbose. So also in a little bit of a later language version, I can't recall where this was introduced, you could use the null coalescing operator to combine with a throw exception. So we could say, if the file path is null, then throw. Oops. I meant to do this. Now, well, I'm just having I guess we then need to assign this to something, because that's really this expression, which says if the left-hand side is not null, evaluate the right-hand side. But that's an expression, so something is returned. We can then just assign this to a discard. So we do, this is a pattern you saw a couple of years ago quite often, because this is effectively a one-liner. And if we had multiple, it's also, I'm just zooming out a little, and then actually turning this into a line kind of then looks nice. But with .NET 6, there's even a shorter version now available, where we can just say an argument null exception has a method, throw if null, where we pass in the file path, and that's now it. And we still have the very same behavior. We get an argument exception. The cool thing is I pass in the variable that I want to check, but I also get this name of functionality. We see that the parameter name of here, file path, is working as well. And that's because there's a bit of magic in the throw if null. It's not magic. Compiler sugar is, oops, that's the int pointer.
It's the Halloween episode. It's magic.
It's dark
magic.
Okay, magic. Dark magic. Okay. Well, we are on dark theme. Okay, dark magic.
Yes.
So we pass in the argument, which then, this is then what's happening. It checks, is the argument null? And if it isn't, then this throw method is called, which is also attributed with does not return. So this method always throws argument null exception, and we are gone. But this method also has a caller argument expression. And with the name of the argument that we pass in here, so this one. And this now gets filled into this parameter name, where the parameter name now is used for the throw to actually pass to the argument null exception, because the constructor of the argument null exception requires this parameter name. So with the bit of dark magic, we actually only passing one argument.
Yeah.
Because without that magic, we would need to do this, name of file path.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Same thing. We haven't changed anything of the behavior, but we can commit this and basically let the through this caller argument expression, we can let the compiler fill it. And if we take a look at the C# code that gets emitted, we get exactly that. So we get this file path here. This is what the compiler is. Although we didn't write it, this is what the compiler emits automatically because of the caller argument expression Roslyn magic here.
Nice.
And yeah, this has been a bit of a history how checking for the different ways of checking for null and throwing argument null exception, which has all now accumulated into just this one little helper method. And this is now very common what you see. You do argument exception for if null. There's also now more helpers on argument exceptions. I think in .NET 7 and 8, more of these helpers got added, like throw if null or empty, throw if white space. So this throw if null or empty is basically what we had earlier, to throw if, so that we don't allow empty strings anymore. So if you pass in a non-empty string, all is good. But if you pass in an empty string, we now get the argument exception, because the implementation of throw if null or empty, now that works on strings and checks, well, is the string either null or empty? So it has it a length of 0, and if it does, then we throw. And I think in .NET 9, there's even more of these helpers coming. I think there's also then range, or do they exist, or are they on, oh no, they are an argument out of range. There's also an argument out of range exception, and there is more helpers there for integral numbers. Throw if greater than, throw if less than, throw if negative. Let's say I pass in an index, and the index that I pass in, well, that really shouldn't be negative, so that I only allow so that I only allow like real kind of indexes. They go from 0 to max, but there is no negative index. Speaking of when we do array indexing, and this could now, yeah, also with a nice helper, so we don't, for the very common paths of validating strings, integers, or numerics, or references for null, there is now a lot of helpers turning this into one-liners each. And there's also, when we use this helper methods, there's also a little bit of a slight performance gain, because now this has something to do with inlining, because I think if you have a method that doesn't throw, because this method now, we don't have a throw here. It's just we call other methods that may throw. But now this method may become eligible to be inlined. So at one time that the JIT compiler could inline this code to avoid one method call and be ever so slightly faster. But yeah, that's a bit of a...
And that must make you very happy, because you like performance, don't you?
Yeah, it does. It does.
I just checked when .NET 9 will be released, because like last year we were like counting down, and I was like aware of it like months in advance. I think it was also because of our news section, because we kept like speaking about like what's gonna be there. But it's so soon. Like it's basically here.
Is it 2 weeks or 3 weeks?
Yeah.
Yeah,
it's like
weeks because it's November the 12th.
Mid-November. Yeah.
Well,
the 14th.
No, maybe what is November the 12th? I think that's a Tuesday. So I
don't know.
Yes. Well, in the previous years, it was then released on the Monday.
Ooh.
Because .NET Conf usually is from Tuesday to Wednesday.
So on November 11th?
I guess so, yeah.
That would be funny, because it's 11/11.
Ooh.
Yes. But yeah, awesome.
.NET 9 with C# 13 released on 11/11. Very likely. Maybe maybe they release on the 12th, but I think they usually go on the day before, if I recall correctly.
Awesome.
Or in our
Yeah,
case,
well.
in our time zone, the evening before. Yeah.
That's also going to be a great episode. So make sure you come back.
We definitely need to upgrade our code base to C#13.
Yeah.
So there must be. We will definitely explore C#13 language and also some new stuff that was added in .NET and the BCL and so on. And in the SDK also has a couple of new features. There's also one feature that is related to tools. Should we take a look at this already? Yeah, why not?
Why not?
.NET 9 SDK changes that comes along with for tools. Well, there is many changes, but one for tool that kind of impacts us. If you, that's in the SDK, of course. Yes, .NET Tool roll forward.
Ooh.
Per default, if you, well, we have .NET 6, .NET 8, .NET 9. And since those are major release numbers, usually there are some breaking changes.
Yeah.
It's very unlikely that there is a source breaking change. Actually, with C#13, there is a language feature in a preview state coming out that will be causing a source, potentially behavior breaking change from a language perspective. But let's see how far they go with that. But this also in .NET 9 or C#13 only as a preview. So in .NET 10, C#14, we could have our first language kind of a breaking change where the behavior of the language is changing. But also they very, very rarely do BCL changes. So changing the name of a method or of arguments that are passed into a method. Also super, super, super rare. I think the only break that they did recently is to remove the binary formatter, which has some inherent security issues. But usually there is always, in some corner cases, some behavioral breaking changes. They always also have a section of breaking changes. And you can view, for example, in .NET Core libraries, what behavioral, it's usually not compiling breaking changes, but the behavior make change. We actually see that most of these changes are behavior breaking. Only some are sourcing compatible. And I think those source and compatible changes, yeah, you see they were taken from a preview. So during the .NET during the .NET release, the first have 6 or 7 previews and then 2 release candidates. And well, in those previews, sometimes they do have also sourcing compatible changes, but it's very rare that from a major version to another major version that there is also sourcing compatible changes. Very rare. But most of the changes usually are behavior breaking. Then you can take a look at, yeah, what is those behavior breaking changes, because while those behavior breaking changes could impact your application if you silently roll forward. Like our .NET tool, if we were to build our .NET tool for .NET 6, and then maybe in 10 years, somebody's running it on .NET 19, there could have been quite a few of breaking changes in between. So per default, there is no roll forward of applications. So if you compile an app for .NET 6, then per default, you need a .NET 6 runtime to run it. Or in our case, since we have a .NET 6 tool, you need a .NET 6 SDK to run it. Actually, we do multi-targeting for .NET 6, 7, and 8. So I think we should stop multi-targeting for .NET 7 because .NET 7 is out of support. But then .NET 9 comes in, so we could then target .NET 6, 8, and 9.
Yep.
So we kind of deploy for this. We release for these runtimes or for these SDKs, and then through our tests also kind of promise that they work how we expect them to work. If we were to not deploy it or release it for .NET 9, and somebody has only the .NET 9 SDK, they weren't able to run the tool. without
would
installing the
be
.NET 9 SDK.
devastating. So
Indeed. So what they add now is that you can opt in to a roll forward policy. Well, this was always possible for regular apps. If you have a regular .NET Core app, you can allow roll forwarding. And this is now also possible for .NET tools. So I, as a consumer, could now say, hey, when I install a tool, or is it when I run a tool, I can say allow roll forward, which is basically often, okay, I kind of accept potential breaking changes. But usually those are very rare and very corner case. So in most of the cases, if it's not jumping too many versions, then it should work just fine. So we could think about, maybe packing less target frameworks in our app or in our tool, because we pack currently 3 versions of our tool, which makes our NuGet package 3 times the size. There is always a bit of a trade-off with that. So we could think about maybe not publishing for all of the target frameworks or of the SDK versions to reduce size a little bit, because users could then still do roll forward themselves. This one thing, one of the many things that come with .NET 9.
I'm going to take my cape off. I'm actually, sorry, slight interruption. I think we should bring them back into fashion, because they're basically like blankets, but like with little strings so you can walk around with them. But that also means that I'm boiling. So off with the cape. Enough spookiness. But this sounds really cool, this roll forward thing. So we should definitely consider that.
Now, just before we jump into the code, because we now talked about breaking changes and also breaking changes within a preview cycle, there was one C# language feature that didn't make it, that was in a preview of C# 11. I'm not sure if I remember correctly, where you could have, so that you don't need to do this classic throw if null. Let's bring our method back that we had earlier. Let's pass in an empty string, and now if argument null exception file path. So I think this was before this helper existed, so that you don't need to write this if is not null for yourself all the time. What was proposed is that you do at a reference type parameter, after the name, you do a double exclamation mark. I think this was called the bang bang operator or the null checking. No, I'm not sure what the proper name was.
Okay.
There it is. Parameter null checking feature is not supported.
Nice.
So this was a feature in a preview of the C# language, but then they dropped it because the community was a bit, it kind of felt weird, because you do put this on the name, but you don't really check the name. You actually check the type, but putting it here is even weirder. And also you're kind of mixing signature with behavior. So that's kind of there was a bit of a what's the word? Dispute of this feature. So this was actually pulled. Sometimes a feature doesn't make it. This was in some preview version of C# 11, I think, and then was dropped. But then they came up with this nice helper methods. So it's just a one-liner that we need to do for proper argument validation.
I have a question before we jump in, but I think this is going to be a trivia episode. We also have a lot to get to. Because, like, speaking of like experimental or like new things in language, in C# languages, do you know what happened with interceptors?
Yes. Yes, I do. They are, we definitely need to upgrade our interceptors, because I think I still have the code open that we took a look at earlier. We built a tool that helps you uncover all of the intercepted methods in your compilation. And we do find, I think this actually, this is our interceptor walker. which goes through all of the method declarations, checks if this method has this attribute that we are looking for. I need to take a look at the code. So we check the attributes. Actually, do we already know? Method symbol. We do check the attributes because the attribute has, select many. Not I was expecting a check for this location attribute. Oh, it's been a while since we take a look at this code. Anyway, because an interceptor, perhaps we still have a test. The interceptor walker, no, this is the interceptor locator tests. Do we have an interceptor in here? Let's search for intercepts location. There we go.
Oh, okay.
Here. So we here have an interceptor where we have a method, and you can attribute this via the interceptor's location attribute, which is now intercepting the call at program CS line 6 character 9, where when we go to in our test, where is the program CS? Here is the program CS. Line 6, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 3, 4, 5, 6. So here's line 6. Character 9. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, which is exactly here after the dot. So this invoker.invoke is intercepted and not going through the statically bound method, but actually then going to the interceptor. And yes, this feature will still be, well, .NET 9 has not been released, but it's just 3 weeks. I think it's very likely still to be released as a preview.
Okay.
But this intercepts location feature, this attribute will change. Well, this attribute will still be possible, but this format will be dropped in the future. So at some point, we need to drop this as well. What we for .NET 9 additionally need to support is the new syntax, which has a string data and a version integer. So it only has, so this intercepts location attribute, basically we now need to have yet another, or actually this intercepts location attribute now needs to get another constructor. That takes, I think it's string data and int version. And the int version, well, at the beginning it will be version 1, now dictates how this data string is interpreted. This data string is, I think this can look like something like this. I'm not sure, some hashed data encoded. I'm not sure what is encoded in there and how it is hashed. There is some algorithm behind it. But Roslyn now has a feature where you can basically generate this attribute so that you don't need to write this attribute yourself anymore. You just emit, you just say, okay, which method do you want to intercept? Give me an appropriate intercepts location attribute for that I then just put on my method that usually also my source generator emits. And since the string, this is something not human readable, this highlights that interceptors really are meant to be created by source generators and not by authors. But yes, so after the .NET 9 release, we need to update our interceptor locator to also consider this new feature.
Cool.
I'll make a issue in our backlog.
Yes.
Locator v1, v2, .NET 9. And yes.
All right. Well, we're almost an hour into a stream. So let's get going with the actual content and with what we wanted to achieve today, because I guess we have a lot, or it could be a lot. It could be a little bit tricky.
Could be a lot. Yes, maybe we start with the simple version first, and then we see how much we can.
Yes, sounds good. How simple is the simple
digress.
version? Is it going to be easy? I hope so.
Should be easy-ish. So we have a problem in our nullable migrator. So maybe let's go to some nullability migrator specs from the core tests to see what we do. So assuming we have a code base that is null oblivious, that has been built before the nullable reference types features have been introduced, and you now want to start switching to the nullable reference type features. There is two ways we could do that, either by going to each and every, because per default, well, it's just disabled. We could go to each and every document and add nullable disable, which doesn't really have an effect, but additionally, then also enable it on a compilation level, which is in a CS project, looks like this, nullable enable. But, well, our tool doesn't really, we don't really want to break anything, and it's always also very difficult to, and it's also a very manual process to go through all the code and set those nullable annotations, those question marks, and the nullable attributes and all the null checks to do them correctly. Perhaps in the future, a tool could facilitate parts of it, but currently we don't. But we want to make it easier. We want to make the very automatable process as automated as possible, which is the first step is enabling it on a project level, but then disabling it on each and every file. Where I now basically migrated, if I were to add a new document, a new file to my project, this would now, since the default of this project is now enabled, automatically be null aware, and all is cool. And then maybe with each commit or with each other commit, every time I touch a specific file, I could now remove this attribute and then fix up all of the nullable warnings and provide all of the proper nullable annotations, and then commit by commit, remove them, and make my code more and more null aware. And there is also a second way, the other way around, where we set nullable and where we set nullable enable on each and every document, but don't enable it on the project level just yet. With the wait a minute, that's the other way around. Excuse me, that's the other way around. Sorry, the other way around, because the first way was upfront. Before you start the migration, you do nullable disable everywhere and then add it on a project level. The other way is then the cleanup. If we were not to do anything up front, but then when we have a file that is not null enabled, we just enable this, we just say nullable enable on this very document until we have commit by commit. Maybe this is depending on the size of the project, takes a couple of days, weeks, maybe a year, could be longer depending on the size of the project. Then eventually you have nullable enable everywhere. And now we could remove all of these nullable enables and again then enable it on a project level to have the same behavior. And those are the two. So we do the upfront and the post cleanup automation in our tool. But we also set this nullability context options on a compilation, on the C# compilation, which then should result in adding it to the CS project.
Yeah.
But this is not supported by the MSBuild-Workspace that we are using. When we take a look at the test, oops, I should have double-clicked. So in this test, we have some code. Then we say, please run our nullable add disable command. And now we expect that this nullable disable is set on every document, but also that this nullable feature has been enabled on a project level. But when we apply the changes, we get an unhandled exception, system not supported exception, changing compilation options is not supported. And that's on the MSBuild-Workspace. explain with AI. What does AI say? Oops. It says, the error you're facing indicates that your MSBuild-Workspace is trying to apply changes that modify compilation options, which is not supported by the workspace. That is 100% correct. And now we want to still enable that feature. So last time, we built a C# project builder that adds this nullable, where we have, in this case, an empty CS proj, and then we can then add this nullable enable to the CS project. So now we want to suppress the MSBuild-Workspace from trying to do that and fail.
Yeah.
And then take that part over and redo that. And yeah, this is exactly what we now have to do. So last time we did introduce the C# project builder that we can now use in our tool, where we go to our nullable command. Here is, let's start with which one do we start? Maybe with the other one. With the add nullable command. And here we go. No, wait a minute, that's the reporter, excuse me. Add disable. And so we do get the project. So here we have an MSBuild-Workspace.
Yeah.
We open the project. Then we pass it to our nullability migrator, which is now going through each and every document. Here we still have a comment for the IDEs that we used. We do add this nullable directive trivia to each and every document.
Yeah.
Then at the end, then mutates the project to have this new compilation options. And this is the problematic part. Well, from an MSBuild-Workspace perspective. And actually, we also doodled the code here a little bit because change compilation options, this is false. This is not supported. So what we now would like to do, we also doodled it here a little. We want to add this nullable enable here. And then save the project. So this project, this one is now more or less tainted. We can't use this to apply the changes here. So what we want to do is create a new project. Create a new project, because in WASL everything is immutable.
Yeah.
That has the same compilation options, but with that uses the compilation options from the previously loaded project.
Yeah.
So we kind of, with that, we discard the changes in compilation options. Perhaps before we do a check, has the nullable compilation options, have they really changed? If they have not changed, we don't need to worry. But if they have changed, now we need to create a new project that uses new compilation options, basically discarding the new ones. Then we apply the changes. And then afterwards, we need to override the CS proj ourselves with the C# project builder that we did, where we added, I believe, a method called enable nullable, something like this, and then save.
Okay. Can I just say it quickly in my own words so I don't get confused? So we get a project, the project, kind of, sort of what we're using, where we have the compilation options, we check whether they have changed. And let's just say they have changed. We remember that they have changed. We discard them though. And then we do it basically manually writing them into the Seeds project.
Precisely.
Right? Okay. Got it. Awesome. Because it does get complicated.
It does indeed.
Especially with this, like enable, disable. Okay, cool. And we're doing this right here, or do we have like a helper method, or do we just try and fix it and then extract it, or like what's the?
Very good point. Let's start here,
Let's start
then
here.
we move it to a method.
All right. Little sip of water, and let's go.
So how can we find out if the nullability or the nullability options of the compilation options have changed between this project and the new project from the migration.project?
Oh, from the migration.project. With I don't know. Well, is it difficult? Is it not just like comparing them? Can we not just access them?
Not
They should
entirely
be
sure.
exactly the same or
But
completely different, no?
let's get the compilation options of the old project and
Old options. I mean, should it just
old options sounds good.
options? That's wrong.
Yes.
But it was autocomplete. It wasn't me. So project compilation
options. Yes. Those are, since this is just a project, and a project could be a Visual Basic project or a C# project, and nullable reference types is only a C# feature, we need to cast them into C# compilation options.
Alrighty. C#. No. Let's return it. Wait. Sharp compilation options. Nice. Oops.
Cool. And yeah, let's do the same thing with the new options.
All right. New options. I'm using var, but we can have it explicitly as well. And that's migration dot project dot compilation options. Right? Yes.
And that's the same. We also need to pass.
Oh yes.
We need to, what's the word? Cast them to C# compilation options. And now we can check if the nullable, I forgot the exact property of that, but something with nullable has changed between the two. Because if it has, we will run into a problem here.
Nullable context options.
Yeah, that sounds good. I'm not taking a look at what that is. That is an enum, and an enum is wonderfully comparable. I'm just adding some dammits here to get rid of our warnings. We can deal with them later. And cool. So if they are not equal, yes, now something has changed, and now we need to do the stuff. Now we need to discard, or basically from this, because we still want to have from this project, we still want to use all the changed documents, because document changes. I think there's also a change document change. Yes. So we have change options and change docs. This will be true. This will work. So this we still want to apply. So let's now, from this migration project, let's create a new project that has the same compilation options of the old project. So we discard what we did in our migrator.
I have a question. It has nothing to do with that though, but like, can I just, because I just wanted to get rid of the var, and then that would be probably it. Do I then also have to have the cast still, or is it?
Yes. Yes, the cast here is necessary because that's what we cast to. If we were to remove that,
Yeah.
This is now an implicit cast, and you
Yeah.
cannot implicitly downcast.
Okay.
So we can't, because the hierarchy is we have compilation options,
Yeah.
comp ops, okay, and and the C# compilation options, they derive from compilation options. So if we have C# compilation options, we can implicitly convert to compilation options. That's a downcast. Likewise, I think compilation options that inherently then derives from object. So we can also implicitly upcast to object. What we can do, what we cannot do, we cannot implicitly downcast from object to compilation options, because this may fail, because options could also be a string.
Yeah.
And likewise, this is what we're trying here now. We cannot downcast implicitly from compilation options to C# compilation options. This could fail because maybe it's not C# compilation options, but Visual Basic compilation options, or in the future, my super language free compilation options. If I were to, we could maybe build our own language used with Roslyn. The thing is that I think we kind of know, because in our nullability migrator, we have a code path, throw if not C#.
Yeah.
So at this point, the compiler can't know, but we know that these are C# compilation options. Therefore, for us, because of what we have, the code that we already have in place, and we know our flow, this cast is safe. We already assured this is a C# project, therefore those compilation options are C# compilation options. But from a compiler's perspective, it doesn't know, so we cannot implicitly downcast, because technically it may fail.
Yeah.
So we need
Makes
the
sense.
explicit cast, and therefore, yeah.
Okay. All right. But thanks for explaining that. It would have been
Anytime.
a lot prettier. Cool. So okay, now I'm with you. So now we are in we need to get these changed documents. No?
No. We keep the changed
No.
documents,
We've got them.
but we now create a new project that uses the compilation options from basically uses the compilation options from the previously loaded project. So these old options, those are the ones that we want to use for this new project that we now create.
Okay, so project. I can call it project. No, how do
I think we use project already. Since we have here new options, maybe we call this new project. Or changed project, because we apply changes. Maybe changed project.
Project. All right.
And this now should be the we don't need to load it again. We already loaded it.
That was okay.
So we want to use this project, but with the old compilation options.
Okay. Can I wait? So with compilation options is right
that looks excellent. Yes, because in Roslyn everything is immutable, so we can't just mutate the project. But on most of the times there were withers, these with methods that now create a new project that has these changes without changing the original immutable project. And that looks good. Cool. So we create now a new project that uses the compilation option from the previously one. Effectively, we've discarded these options. And now this is the project that we want to apply the changes to.
Okay. So, but in here still, right? Yeah. Workspace. No.
We could, yeah. Let's do that.
Apply changes and then change project. Oops.
Cool.
No.
And we need the solution. So change project dot solution.
Oh.
Yes. And else we do. So if those options have not changed, then we do the previous one of the project that our migrator spat out. So I'll just do an else here and move that in here.
But
so
now,
in case there are changes, we remove the changes. In case there are no changes, then just go. Yes, but now, well, in the case that there were changes, we still need to overwrite the CS project ourselves.
Yep.
So we need to, well, this is what we built in the last episode, the C# project builder for.
C# project builder.
And I think we had some static factory methods on there.
From file path or from text? Is it wrong one? Did I do it wrong?
No. It looks good.
Okay.
I think the from text we used in our unit tests. We just pass in some CS project string, and the from file path now should load it from that file. So that looks good.
Oh, why is my camera funny?
And now we need to pass in the file path of the project.
File path.
I think that's on that should be a property on the project.
File path. It is.
Cool.
Oh. Yeah.
Okay, minus some nullability. So, okay, it can be that there, well, again, it could be that there is no, because that's just a project. We don't really know if this is a physical project or a project that is created by an ad hoc workspace, and that's entirely in memory. So there may not be a file path. But again, in our code flow, we kind of know because we use the MSBuild-Workspace to open the project from a file path. So we kind of know that this file path exists. So yeah, I would do the dammit here as well, because well, in our flow we know.
Yeah.
Well, there's also a different way we could, because this is basically just suppressing the warning. What we could do alternatively is a debug.assert and say project file path is not null.
Oh.
Now this has two effects. Debug assert is attributed with does not return if. That means this method will throw an exception if the condition we pass in is false.
Yeah.
So if file path would be null, this would throw, therefore we would never reach this code, and static code analysis know everything is good. But this is a debug assert. Debug assert also is attributed with conditional debug. So only if we run our application in a debug build and not, actually it's here, right? We're currently in the debug configuration. When we publish our NuGet package, we actually do the release configuration. And for release, this method will dramatically disappear. The compiler will just remove it. So from a release build perspective, we still have the same as if we just were suppressing it. But in a debug build, we would run here in an exception. I'm not sure what exception will be thrown, but some exception, some fail exception, saying that, yeah, this assertion was violated. Now, what do you prefer?
The damn it operator.
And it is.
What do you prefer? I mean, my reason is just, less code, and that's it.
I kind of prefer that because, well, in the debug build, it is a little bit more explicit.
Yeah.
And we wouldn't then later on run into some argument null exceptions, but fail early. And in release build, it still doesn't have an impact. But I agree, it's a little bit more code. And if we have a lot of them, it may become a little bit verbose. And well, in our case, if I just scroll a little bit up, I see, okay, this was loaded from a file. So
yeah,
it's still in the same kind of scope. It's in the same method. Then I find, damn it, cool, because in that context, I see, oh yes, if this was different methods, maybe some private implementation methods where I know that the flow ensures that it cannot be null, but it's not that apparent that it is, then I would prefer the debug assert to be a little bit more explicit if it's not that apparent. But here it's quite apparent, so damn it is good from my perspective.
Fair enough. All right, but now we need to find a way to...
Yes, so this is now returning a new builder.
Yeah.
And I believe last episode on the builder, we provided some method that now with which we can enable
like this
Nullable Reference Types.
All right. Builder dot enable nullable. Easy peasy lemon squeezy. Should I inline that? Should I just put the enable nullable at the end?
I'm not sure what you mean.
Can we just do it here?
No, we can't, because nullable enable is false. What is that statement? Returns void. I don't know.
Okay, got it.
It's not false. It's a method. It returns void. So if we were to change that, now we can't use that builder anymore because we still need to save that file.
Okay, got it.
We can think about making this fluent. We can give that a try afterwards.
Okay. Builder. No, can't save here. What?
Oh, I guess that's something that we haven't built last time, because last time we only were in memory. We haven't considered, we didn't have any. Now we are in our end-to-end tests or in our end-to-end scenario. So I guess we haven't added that method yet. So yeah, maybe let's just write the method here as what we would expect.
Builder dot
save, change, save maybe, yeah.
Save changes? No, it's just save.
Save, yeah.
Like this. And then...
Ooh, do we also need to... now it becomes a bit of an implementation detail. Do we wanna... because when we load from a file path,
yep,
we still have to do with the file path here. So do we likewise, when we save, also want to pass the file path? Or do we want to store that file path once when we created it, and then we use that? Or do we want to explicitly pass it? So
okay.
That we could technically read it from one file and save it to a different one.
Would that be something that we would want to do at some point in the future?
I don't know. I don't think so.
Because if we don't need it, let's just take it from... I don't know. I'm 50-50 actually. My original instinct was like, I want to put the file path there because it gives you more control, I guess, and more options. But then on the other hand, like, we've had so many projects with so many files and file paths and stuff that it might get a little bit confusing, but it might be nice to just, especially if there's no real use case or like very, very edge cases that we can, add whenever we need it.
So we just want to
save.
Cool.
Yeah.
Then
long story short.
Maybe let's call it, since this is from save. Cool. Then we create that method, and now we just need to implement that method. I guess we still also have to implement the from file paths, because that's
we do, don't we?
So
where do you want to start?
Let's our project builder here. This is the constructor we made it private that we call with X document. I guess we now also need an overloaded constructor that takes a file path, so that we can store the file path in a field to use then in our save method, because here now we need to use the file path field that came from the static factory method. And Servus Vasi.
Hello, welcome. Thanks for joining us. I was just about to destroy all of our code. It's a good time. Good time to join. No, I'm having slight issues either with my internet connection, so that's why it's a little bit slow, or with my keyboard, or with the IDE. I'm not sure. But I'm facing issues, but don't worry, I'll overcome them in no time. All right, so we want to overload this constructor with the file path.
I think we just do a string, yeah.
String.
We could also do a file info.
Yeah.
But maybe in our case, since this is a type we just use internal, we kind of know the usage. We could also just do a string, yeah.
And then put the field up top, right?
No? Yes.
File path like this. And then this is like definitely the slowest way to do it, but it's my way. Slow and steady. It's also super slow because now I lost my constructor. Oh, I found it. Okay, cool. And then file path is file path. Woohoo! Easy peasy lemon squeezy.
And now we should be able to call that from the constructor. So I guess we need to load.
Oh, yeah. Yes.
We need to load the file.
Okay, I'm gonna write it here.
Actually, maybe Xdocument has something to load from a file. Because we
Xdocument load async or load.
It's not certain. Let's see. Well, if there's an async version, we can use the async version. No, that takes a stream reader or an XML reader. I'm wondering if there is, maybe there isn't anything that loads from a file path and we need to do that ourselves, could be. Oh, there's a load URI. Interesting. Well, seems to be working from a file. Okay, then it's just a load method, not the load async. And we pass in the file path.
Yes. File path.
We may also want to pass the same load options that we do in the parse down here to keep.
Yes. Oops, that was exciting. Oh no, not none. Preserve white spaces we have, right? Yeah. Okay.
And then we need to store that in a local, and then can return a new builder.
What? Load the.
So that's like document or doc.
Oh, document. All right.
And now we need to create a new instance, return a new instance of the C# project builder.
Yes. Return new. Is that possible? Maybe. C# project builder. C#. No. Doesn't. See, something's up. Doesn't autocomplete anymore. And project builder.
No, there's no. We now can call the constructor that takes Nux document and the file path.
Oh, okay. There we are. Okay, autocomplete is really something is up. It's not me, I promise. And what was it? Encoder? No.
No. The first is a document. The second parameter is the file path.
Document file path. Oh goodness. Yes.
To invoke the constructor that we just wrote.
And I already forgot. As I promised, like
to...
this is only going to get more fun the older I get. Like, imagine when I'm 60 and we're on the stream and I like forget my own name. All right, good.
Well, maybe this is why I put. Oh, that's the mirroring. I can't do it. This is why I put my name here, so I never forget.
Oh yeah, that's true. Yeah, okay. But also, like, I could have just read from just below. The toast has arrived.
So that we can do some training,
Woohoo!
because
Oh my
that was in
goodness.
training.
Hello, welcome. Also, like, great place to start, because I did already do some really cool coding and I felt very good about myself. And then the IDE, and I was still blaming on it. Messed me around a little bit. And so, yeah, we're back to old Eva coding. Okay.
The thing is, now we have a file path now for the in-memory usage. We don't have a file path. So file path actually maybe now. Doing here a question mark so that this warning disappears, because we have one constructor that doesn't set the file path. Because it could actually be null. What we can also do is, well, since we kind of have this twice, we can also do a bit of constructor chaining. Not sure if we covered this already. We can do this. Then pass in the document in here. We move it from there, because what's happening now, when we call this constructor up here, we first call this constructor, because we say this document, which is this signature. So we first set the document and then the file path. But if we call this constructor, file path is never set. Therefore, file path is nullable. And now when we go to our save method, this is now where we need to use the file path. Well, I guess only if it's not null. And if it is null, maybe we throw in exception, invalid operation exception, that it was not loaded from a file, therefore we cannot save to a file.
Okay. So if file path is null, yes, then throw something. No.
I think for that is an invalid operation exception. That's it's a common exception to use when the object is not in the state that you need for this method to succeed. Invalid operation exception.
Oh, wow. I swear I pressed tab on the right one. I swear it.
It's interesting. Okay. Maybe there's something wrong with code with me, something out of sync.
Yeah. Is it right now? Yes.
Yeah. And otherwise, we then can, well, actually, we don't really need an else, because throw will terminate, so we can just write.
See what's happening? Or was that you?
No. Okay. Oh, maybe I'm intersecting when I click around. Maybe that's not helping.
Okay, so we don't need any of this. Okay, good.
And in that case, we can then do a file dot write all. We have a string, right? Write all text. Oh, wait a minute. We have an X document. Can we store the X document to a file? Not sure. Do we have? Can we do document.save? What does that take? Stream, text writer, string, which does a file name. Maybe we can use that one. And there's also save options. None, disable formatting, and omit duplicate namespaces. Well, we don't want to disable formatting, so none. So maybe let's call document. But we don't. Wait a minute. Wait. Oh, actually, do we need the file path altogether? Maybe we don't need the file path, because we load from a file path. Maybe we don't need it altogether. But so can we just do document.save? Oh, that needs a file. Oh, that needs a file path. Okay, no, we still need a file path. Yeah. So excuse me, my bad. Here we now need to pass the file path. I was thinking wrong.
Okay, good.
Yeah.
Awesome.
And cool.
Woohoo!
Let's give that a try. And while we run the tests, perhaps answer the question from Anand, what we're working on. So do you want to sum it up?
Yeah. So, okay, I can try and sum it up, but please interrupt me if I say something wrong. All right, so basically we are working on a .NET tool, and it has a couple of different features. And the one we're working on right now has to do with like when you have like oh my goodness, it's quite hard to explain. But like, so nullable reference types, right, is what we're what sort of the big topic is. And this is kind of these nullable warnings or nullable sort of like hints. It's not just warnings. I keep forgetting what they're called.
The warnings and the annotations?
Annotations, yes. They're kind of like wait, which languages is like a later? It's not. It's pardon.
Yeah. Like this question mark here. So we mark this nullable. That's C#8.
Yeah, C#8. So if you have like an older project, and you kind of want to use this, you kind of want to bring it into the new age and use those features, the migration can be really, really difficult and very tedious, because you can enable it, but then like on a project level, but then you have like your entire project is going to be full of warnings, and it can be really, really annoying. And so there are also a couple of ways that it's that you can kind of migrate that are sort of like recommended, and there are two options, and we're trying to support those two options. We're trying to automate as much as we can, so you don't have to do like the tedious part. Am I speaking way too long? Because I'm like I'm like starting from the beginning.
It's good. It's good.
Okay, good.
But I guess we can enhance it with some examples.
Examples, yeah. So one of the options is, so per default, nullable is disabled. You already said this at the beginning of the stream. I'm just going to try and repeat it. And you got confused there as well, so I'm going to try not to get confused. So disable on a project level. No, it is disabled on a project level. Okay, so option 1 is you can enable it on a project level and then disable nullable on each and every file. And that might be really simple if you've got like 5 files, but if you've got 500, our tool will help you because it will do that for you. And then you can kind of go through one file at a time, do like resolve all you like, remove the disable on the file, top of the file, go through all the warnings, fix them, commit that, done, ship it. And so you kind of like from, over the course of a couple of days or months or years, you can migrate your project. Or you could do the other approach, and that is so this is something you still have to do manually because it's disabled per default, and then you can just enable it file by file by file. So like put it at the top of the file, as you see here. Then you'll see all the warnings and annotations. You can resolve them and commit them. And then at some point, your entire project will be migrated, but you'll still have those silly nullable enable situations at the top of your file. And then our tool comes in handy because it's going to remove all of them for you, enable nullable on a project level, and then you're good to go. And if you're interested in how we built that, we built it all on stream here. You can head to our YouTube page and watch all of our previous episodes. But yeah, so we've kind of built that. However, we've had a couple of issues that we're sort of trying to resolve. And it has to do with this MSBuild-Workspace that does not allow you to set these options, these compilation options. Right? And so, yeah. And so we built our own project builder. And yeah. And now we're kind of, wait, what are we doing now?
Yeah, actually now running a test because no, you're not interrupting at all. It's actually good to reiterate, why are we doing this even? Is this are we still on the right
why
path?
Why are we even here?
And so we check, have those compilation options changed? That will be problematic when applying the changes. So we say if we do use the old options, Cool, but we still need to update the CS project. We still need to put the nullable enable in there. And this is now what we intend to do with that last change. And let's see, because we now use our own project builder where we enable nullable, where we do then some XML. Actually, there is no magic, but I don't understand XML, so that is magic.
Yeah.
Where we had great help last time from our viewers. And then, well, trying to save it back to that file, and let's see how this is coming along. And let's see, cool. Well, I earlier added like a have error, but this was just to show that we have an error. If we get rid of that, what do we get? Well, I'd be surprised if it would be immediately green, but
I'd love that.
We get, oops. So we now have, okay, so it looks good. Our code runs. We don't have any exceptions in our code. Just assertion later on fails because we do print this top thing again.
Yeah.
And we miss some spaces and such. So, but I guess this is also stuff that we fixed last time. So maybe we don't.
I think we hacked it a little bit, right?
I guess so. I think in our toString method we did quite some stuff. So maybe we actually do. Maybe we should use the toString method here.
Yeah. And
instead of saving the document, we now do indeed what we tried earlier. Do a file.write all. Let's see, file.write all lines, write all text. Maybe make this async. And write all text takes the path and the content, where we now have the path that we now checked, and our content is just calling the toString method, because the toString method is also the one that we use in our tests, isn't it? To assert. What am I doing? Shift F12 is not. Have my keyboard layout changed?
Strange behavior on your end as well.
Shift F12. Interesting. Yeah, Shift F12 should be find all usages, but it starts. No, it does.
It does do it.
But it has some background tasks that never finish.
Wow.
Okay. If we go to our C# project builder specs. Oh, there they are. Just took a while. Yes, we do use the toString method. So let's give that one a try. Let's see how the difference. And while this is running, from what Anand understands, we are trying to automate from an old workspace to a new workspace with all the dependencies intact. Yes, so we wanna not change anything other than changing the documents so that they have those nullable annotations or those nullable preprocessor directives, and also the CS project. But everything else should remain untouched.
This is what I mean. Like I always like when you ask me to sum up what we're doing, like my brain goes right to the beginning and not to the task at hand.
No, it's good. I guess we still have. We still haven't figured out some of the spacing issues.
Yeah.
So I guess
didn't we also have an idea how to change that, or no?
Not sure. No.
Not really. Okay. Wishful thinking.
So how do we? Maybe.
Yeah.
For now, let's do a bit of a manual check here. So what is what we expect? I'm just copying this code. Let's see what we expect. Then we kind of add this manually, and we say 1, 2, 3. And we expect, I think, like so. We definitely expect a nullable. Okay, well, it kind of looks like. We expected this, but it is like so. So maybe like this. Okay. Well, it's still
Okay.
there. So it's only. It's still a valid. It should still be a valid CS project.
It's valid. It's just
It's
not
only.
very pretty.
We could figure out better formatting.
Yep.
In the later stage.
That's kind of the bane of our existence, isn't it?
Proper formatting, yeah.
I think, yeah. Since our very first project together with the Advent calendar, where also the fields never lined up, it was quite funny. Back then, it was like padding and what the other thing. Now it's white spaces.
Oh yes, all the
Margins
and paddings and all of that.
Yeah.
I dramatically forgot already what the difference is.
Yeah, me too. No, I think I did. I have an idea, but I'm probably wrong.
So, do I format this? It's just formatting. Maybe we should also change our check here to not be like superstring direct, but only it should be like.
Oh, okay.
It should be content equal, not string equal. But yeah, for now, I just want to get the test to be green. So
Nope.
What do we expect? This is also needs to be 2 spaces, so like so.
Okay.
And then we
Nope.
get a, okay. So this is, wait a minute, space. I always, content did not match, diff shown with expected as baseline. So we expected, but actually we had the nullable. Oh, do we have 2 nullable enables?
No.
Yes, we do. Interesting. Okay. I guess we have a bug in our. But we need to take a look at this later. Well, it's still okay because, well, we write it here, then we write it again. The last one wins. So it's okay. It's not perfect, but it's okay. Let's get it working and then we get it pretty.
Really? That's the last one. Yes, of course.
The last one
This
with
one.
because from properties there can be only one.
Yeah.
So it's a top-down, last one wins. So this one, yeah. Okay, but
okay,
well,
interesting.
just
How do we do that?
I don't know. Let's get it functionally working, and then we expect the console output to match nullable enable. Oh yeah, and also for the other project. Before we tackle the other project, and then this asking, understand nullable.
A very good question.
So in C#, C# 8, that was 2000 and I don't know. So it wasn't there at the beginning. Other languages have that since the beginning. We can, on a string is a reference type. You see that's a class. If the opposite of a class, opposite is a bit of a wrong word, but the other big type is a struct. A struct is a value type, and a value type, as the name suggests, always has a value. Now a class, that's a reference type. So it's not the value directly, but this is only referencing something, which is usually on the heap. So if I have a reference, that is usually then pointing to some memory on the heap. And I could have multiple references pointing to the same memory.
Mm-hmm.
So referring to the same thing, really. But also, the billion-dollar mistake, it could be that a reference is not pointing to anything, which is the default. So per default, a reference is null. And if I try to dereference something that is null, I get a very nasty null reference exception. If I briefly launch sharplab.io, can show this quickly. Let's say I'm just here have a C# program. I say I have a string. text. The string says hello world. And I want to print the length of the string to the console, because every string has a property called length, and this should be 13 characters, and indeed here are 13 characters. If I were to do an empty string, well, an empty string has 0 characters. But what if I were to assign null to it? Because, well, string is a reference type, so this variable here could not point to anything. It could be null. And if we try to dereference null, now we get here, when you try to get the length of something that's null, we dereference null. There is no, this text doesn't point to any memory that has the string, because we don't point to anything. So there is no length, and now we get a null reference exception. And this nullable reference types, this C# feature that was introduced, now should help with detecting these very, very early. Because we see that we get a warning here. We try to, using the null literal, to something that is not nullable, because we just say string here and not string question mark. If I do string question mark, now the warning disappears and all is good. But we have a warning here now because we try to dereference something that may be null. Dereference of a possibly null reference. So what I would need to do to properly code, to defensively code this, is I would do first a null check. Is text is not null, and only if it is not null, now we can dereference it. And also now all of the warnings are gone. And if we run the code, well, nothing is happening because this line is never hit. We could do an else, and in the else block then say console write line text was null, and we get the alternative printed. And the warnings earlier guided us towards writing this code. So we now have null safe code that works with both null and also not null.
Nice.
And Varafan, indeed, yes, property. Where's our test? Where's our test? There is our test. This is indeed terribly indented. We absolutely agree. But first, we want to get it functionally correct.
Yeah.
And then we get it pretty. So what's not a problem with the other one? Oh yeah, we're not doing it for the other path. So perhaps we now want to move this logic into a helper so that we can also apply this because down there we have the same thing again, where we apply changes, where we apply compilation option changes. We have Workspace that doesn't support them. So how do we call this method? How do we call this type where we put this method?
I don't know. Naming is the worst part of this.
Workspace
naming and
helper.
Formatting. Workspace helper?
It's the Workspace helper.
For now.
And
okay.
This is just a helper. And this Workspace helper now has an internal static void apply changes method.
Nice.
Where we pass in, what do we need? Actually, maybe Wider can help us there. If it's that block, right, it's basically this block here.
Yep.
Well, I don't want to have the migration as a dependency, but let's see what Wider does out of that. If we say extract method, whatever, because we're going to move that next. And let's move this to our new type. Internal. Yeah, it takes a project, but it also takes the nullability migration. This is, I don't like that, so this should also be a project. So we pass in the old project
Yep.
and the new project,
Okay.
which is in Microsoft Doc Code Analysis. We need the compilation options where this will be now the new project, old project. We have the old options, the new options.
Yep.
Via the new project with compilation options of the old options, we get the change project, we apply them. And here we just use the new project directly because all is good.
Okay.
And then go back to our caller. What must be up here, where we now call this helper method. And we pass in migration dot project.
Awesome.
Cool. I guess well, we could move this in here as well if we to showcase that. And now we can call the same thing from the other one as well. So if we, instead of apply changes here, have the compilation options about nullable changes. If yes, then apply. That's exactly what we're going to do with our workspace helper dot apply changes, where we say, please use this workspace, consider the old project and the new project.
Nice. Easy peasy lemon squeezy.
The tests. And maybe we have some odd formatting here as well. Well, of course we do.
Yes, of course we do.
Of course we do. Is it again? Well, I'll just copy from the test above.
Yeah.
See where we go from here. Interesting. Here we do have a nice new line. And we also have here, okay. And okay, the nullable enable is, oh no, yes, but this one is gone. Okay, so it's like so.
How does this happen?
I don't know.
Woo! Green tests! Yay!
But let's see. So the test is removes nullable enable. Remove enable.
Yeah.
And removes the enable trivia. So we have enabled. And we also have the output enabled nullable on project and removed nullable enable from one documents.
Yeah.
And indeed, that one is gone now. And also enabled nullable is true. Well, it's kind of, yeah, formatting. But this is, I guess this could be a separate episode when we talk about how to format XML properly, right?
Yeah, and we sometimes have guests on this show as well, and I guess we if there's like some expert out there, we should get him on, because otherwise it's going to be one of those 5-hour episodes.
At least. Cool. We were also, so I guess indeed all of our tests screen now. And while having all of them run, we were also thinking about, well, not having this workspace helper method.
Yeah.
But actually, since this MSBuild-Workspace is not supporting all of our use cases, maybe we can build our own little workspace. Because MSBuild-Workspace is deriving from, well, unfortunately, MSBuild-Workspace is sealed.
Yeah.
So we can't just derive from MSBuild-Workspace and just override workspace.apply changes. Try apply changes. This would be perfect, but perhaps we could build our own workspace that is where we then override these methods ourselves and basically hide that thing and make it implicitly correct. So we have then our own, I'm not sure how we call it, workspace, and it does everything for us. And when we later on change parse options that I can imagine is also not supported by the MSBuild-Workspace, then we can support changing parse options as well. Maybe because, well, if you enable nullable reference types, we actually have, I think we check if the language is at least C#8, isn't it?
Yeah, we check something.
Nullable migrator. Well, we definitely check if it's not.
C#.
No, we don't. Because nullable enabled, this can only be enabled on projects that have at least C#8. So
we don't check it, really?
No, we don't, yeah. So I guess what our tool should also do is check if at least C#8. And if it less,
yeah.
If
just say
less than C#8, then set lang version to C#8. And I think the lang version, this is then in C# parse options, I think. C# parse options. Yeah, this would be the language version here. So I guess we then would need something very similar to also be able to deal with, because I can imagine that if we again go to the MSBuild workspace, oops, that's in here, can apply changes, also does not allow changing of parse options. So we would have the same problem again with that later. And maybe we can hide all of that in our own workspace. And yeah, let's see how far we can get there in a couple of minutes. You're smiling already.
Oh, wow.
So how do we call our workspace? We definitely have it in this project, because here we use the workspaces. So maybe let's create a folder directory, call this workspaces. And how do we call our workspace?
What makes it different to other workspaces?
Workspace that also allows changing parse and compilation options. And more later, maybe.
Okay. Chameleon workspace. No. Changeable workspace. No. How about like maybe having it like for our tool and naming it after the tool?
Ooh, like functionality. You mean tool workspace, CLI workspace, or maybe /o workspace? That looks a bit unwieldy.
That's CLI workspace. Sounds good.
CLI workspace?
I like that.
CLI workspace it is. And this one shall derive from the workspace. From Microsoft Code Analysis. Yes, so this is from Roslyn. Unfortunately, we can't do the MS. Let's confirm that again. MSBuild work. Yeah, there's no auto-completion because cannot inherit from a sealed class.
Yep.
Actually, can we see if from the documentation we can also take a look what workspaces are out there? Microsoft.code analysis.workspace. We should see the other inherited types. So I think there is 3 big ones. Okay. There's the ad hoc workspace that is completely in memory. So we use that for all of our unit testing. We create an ad hoc workspace and we have a project all in memory, no files created, super fast. Then in the MSBuild, this is all in that DLL. In the MSBuild project that we use here, workspaces.msbuild, we have the MSBuild workspace, and there is also a Visual Studio workspace. that you get that when you build Visual Studio extensions.
Okay.
And there is a special Visual Studio Workspace. And I think that special Visual Studio Workspace, I can imagine that that one can mutate to all of the project files as well. But yeah. But yeah, we're not in the Visual Studio context. So we need to derive from the base and does not contain a parameterless constructor. Okay, so we need, okay, because Workspace has a constructor that takes host services and workspace kind. Okay, so I guess what we want to do is we want to, since we cannot do a is a relationship because MSBuild-Workspace is sealed, we could do a has a relationship where we pass in the MSBuild-Workspace and hope that this MSBuild-Workspace has these hosting services. What do we need? Host services. MSBuild.host. Damn it. Services. But that's a different type. Host services.
Easy.
Cool. And what's the workspace kind? Not sure. Let's take a look at what. So MSBuild-Workspace is using MSBuild. I think it's just a string, so this would be our CLI or CLI workspace. Yep. Then cool. Okay. And now what do we need to do now, since the problematic method is where's F0? It's our logo.
Another great question.
Then we go to our repository. Do we have it here? Yes, to our tool. We use that as an icon for the NuGet package that we published that includes our tool. So when we go to NuGet.org, we use this as a shortcut. So it's the abbreviation for flashover for our GitHub organization, for our YouTube channel, for us.
Yes. We're quite proud of it. I'm quite proud of it. You came up with it.
I don't want to say I'm proud of it because I came up with it, because it would be, yeah. We want to, what we want to exchange is, if we go down all of our call chain, is from the workspace, try apply changes. This is eventually what we need to override. So we override try apply changes, and try apply changes takes the new solution. And I guess, is it as simple as moving the code that we have here? Well, I just used the workspace helper for now. We can move it just later.
Yeah.
Apply changes just in here, but apply changes takes the projects and such. We don't know the old project, do we? Can we understand if we only get the new solution? We don't really have the old solution that we originally loaded, do we? Not sure if the MSBuild-Workspace. Wait a minute, the MSBuild-Workspace does have the current solution. So we definitely need to put this in a field. And we could, that gets tricky. Because that one has a current solution, and this current solution has projects. But which project to take? Well, maybe the same solution with, how do we understand if any? Because we have projects here, but we also have projects here. So I guess can we can we basically do a bit of for each over.
So, sorry, what do you want to do?
Because
Check.
well, a solution may contain multiple projects.
Yeah.
Now, understand if any of these projects have changed, because what we did so far is we only check if one. Oh, wait a minute. We just need this. Oh, I was thinking wrong. So what we need is yeah, thanks for stopping me. I was going the wrong way. What we need is, in order to call this, is we need the workspace. Well, we have that.
Yeah.
We need an old project and a new project, so that we can call apply changes. But okay, we actually do this only for a single project. So we kind of, excuse me?
Also apply changed. Changes. I don't know if you want to change that.
Yes, thank you. Well, maybe let's say currently we only support a single project in that solution, and later on we can expand our workspace to also support multiple projects in that solution. So if we say new solution dot projects dot length, what is that? Is that an enumerable? That is an enumerable indeed. Count.
Yeah.
If it is not 1, and the MSBuild current solution dot projects is not 1, then we can throw a new invalid or not supported, invalid, not implemented. We currently only support single project solutions.
Okay.
And if we only have one, we can, I guess we have everything we need, because we can now go into apply changes with the MSBuild-Workspace. Oops, why did I delete the old new project? This too, genau. We can get the old project from MSBuild dot current solution dot project dot single, because we already checked there's only one. And same from the new solution. New solution dot projects dot single, because we know there is only one. Single will fail through an invalid operation exception if there is 0 or more than 1 elements. So if there's not exactly 1, this will fail, but we already have code in place. We already guarded against that, because we say, yeah, we currently don't support that, and can then now pass in the old project and the new project.
New project.
And now we also need to do, well, yeah, okay, because this will return false if, I guess, yeah, if the changes are not supported. Take a look at what try-apply changes is doing in the MSBuild-Workspace. It tries, it actually then does a, but this may fail, may it? What does, now we're in the workspace, there's a lot of stuff going on. That I was not expecting. It's also checking the versions of the solutions, if they are okay. And
can we just copy all of that and like
well, eventually we call in that anyway, because we call now, well, this build workspace helper. We don't need this help anymore. Let's cut that. Let's remove that type. Let's create a private method here. Private. Include all of the missing usings. And we now call just into that. And well, we call then apply changes here.
Yep.
Where we call into try apply changes, which is now calling into the workspace anyway. So that's okay.
Okay.
And I guess, well, oh, maybe we just need to. So we don't call into this try apply changes. We say try apply changes and store that. This will be then bool or bool, I don't know, changed. And we return changed.
Nope.
As well as, so we need to also check this is bool returning. And in the here we also do just return try apply changes. Since we do a return, we can get rid of that. Okay, cool.
Nice.
And in the case of, did we just return here?
Easy.
So we then, a little bit too easy, but I don't know. Okay. Now we need to fix all the That was easier than I expected. Okay. Now we need to fix all of that problem. So we no longer have okay, this may now be a couple of, we kind of now want to exchange all usages of MSBuild. MSBuild-Workspace with our new CLI workspace. But for now, so because this will actually then in our program.cs or in our entry point CLI application, here is where this is super, super early in our application where we create, this is one of the first things that we do, we create the MSBuild-Workspace. So here we should now create an CLI workspace instead, or well, we are using this MSBuild-Workspace to create a new CLI workspace with, and then pass it all through. I don't want to change all of the code right now, since this would be a couple of changes. But yeah, basically, we would now here say new CLI workspace with that MSBuild-Workspace. And we need to pass that down everywhere. Just to get this test green, I'll do it just very close to the usage. So instead now using this CLI workspace and call CLI.try apply changes instead with with the migration.project. Oh, .solution.
Solution. Yeah.
And we do that
twice.
The other one as well.
Yep.
This may actually work.
How confident are you? From 1 to 10. 10 is very confident.
Beginning of the stream, 2. Now I'm an 8.
Wow. Okay. I'm going to go with 6. I agree. It was a little bit too easy.
It was too easy.
Somewhere there has to be like a little space, a white space or some formatting that's going to destroy everything. Oh my goodness.
No, succeeding. Cool.
Awesome. Well done.
And now what I like, because we have a to-do here with this, because this is kind of code, I think we still need that. When we run all of our tests in parallel, there can only be one MSBuild workspace in a process, and when we run the tests, and they run in one process, and they would interfere with each other. So we kind of need to, whenever we deal with MS-Build workspaces, when we open projects and mutate projects, we kind of want to have a lock around, and we did that via this MS-Build motics that we had on CLI context, which is kind of nasty because that's just some static thing, some global thing. That's not too cool. I always want to get rid of this anyway. But now that we have this, our custom workspace, we could maybe add this here. Well, we still have the loading and so on, so maybe not too much. We still have like many operations that belong together. But what we could do is build something like a CLI workspace. I'm not sure how this is called. Lease. Is lease a noun?
I don't know.
And this one takes a CLI workspace, so we can wrap this in a type, and where we have a public task, because we have basically the semaphore slim. Maybe let's just copy that nasty little global thing in here, so we actually then have it nice as an instance. This would be our mutex. And we can say I can't write mutex. Oh yeah, underscore mutex. And we can say when we can get a CLI workspace, or we can rent it. No, rent is more of a pool. What does it take? What does it mean to like get something, but also with ownership, so that nobody else can use it? What would be a good word for that?
Oh my goodness, yes. I don't know.
I'm now looking at some other type where this is used. Well, I guess let's call it get for now. We can get it, and where we actually do the await mutex dot wait async. And if this is completed, there can be only one, then we return this instance. But now nobody else should use it unless it's returned. So we can then say public void get release. Sounds good. Where we then say, mutex.release. And now if we had this workspace lease, we could now, because we kind of have two disjoint objects that kind of belong together, but not really, we could then have our lease here. Workspace leaser. Not sure if this is a good name. Something like that.
Yeah. I Googled I looked up some words about like that we could use instead of get, like to take and lock, basically, right?
Take and lock?
That was like a couple of thoughts ago.
Just like take and lock? Or
No. So the words are claim, which I thought was funny, reserve, and acquire, but acquire. Is
but
that
we acquire
also locking it? No.
I like acquire.
Okay.
But I can't type acquire. Acquire.
No. I think.
Yeah.
A.
No, there's a C. AC acquire.
Q.
Yeah. Cool.
I wouldn't have known that either.
And for the opposite operation?
Give me a minute. No, I think release is good.
But we definitely, so this is definitely acquire async,
Yes.
because now we can await here and we acquire now this workspace. Now it's only us who can deal with that workspace, and we do our stuff. And then eventually, when we are done, we then say dot release, or maybe there's also a better word for that. But now it's really part of this. Now we have one, like an accessor type where we can get an instance out. And if we're done using it, then we release, and then we're done with it. Actually, now I also want to use the dispose pattern to be even safer. So I guess, well, here we also need to pass a cancellation token, of course, so that we can pass, because just what we had earlier. So we can get rid of that. And maybe we can now have another type.
Yep.
That is now the CLI Workspace. That's now a lease. What's this? This is then the leaser, maybe. And the leaser gives out a lease, but this lease is now idisposable. Where this lease is basically, well, there's a property. It has, let's make this init only and required, so that we must set it, which now has the CLI Workspace. But this thing is also disposable. So the CLI lease gets in a CLI Workspace leaser. I thought that leaser is a best name here, but okay.
I think, wait, give me a second.
Or renter, something like that. What is something that gives out stuff but takes it back, like a car? How is car on the airport? Those car things called? The car company? No. Now you need a leasee. We need a leasee as well. That's such a cool word, leasee. Oh, this doesn't work. Okay, so let's find the leaser and the CLI workspace. Okay, workspace. Just doodling that out, and we have here an auto-implemented property, which may become null, yes, but we suppress that.
So apparently the person who leases something can also be called a lessor, Lessor.
Lessor?
Yep.
This is a person that leases.
Yep.
Cool. This is really cool.
This is what I found online.
So
I'm
I
gonna
hope
trust
this kind
it. I've never heard it before, but yeah.
So I hope this kind of now comes together, so that we no longer have a. So the thing that we pass around is a CLI Workspace leaser. And so this is something we should do this like to do at app start and pass around. And now via the leaser, we can acquire a lease. This lease has the workspace.
Yep.
But also we can now do a using here and can get rid of this, because we can just say using here, which now generates a try finally block where at the end it's ensured that dispose is called, and when dispose is called, we return. And also we null that workspace. So if I would still be using after returning the lease, if I would still be using it, well, I get a null reference exception.
Nice.
And I'm not sure if this is a good pattern, but this is how we can encapsulate the mutex is just implementation detail, but the promise that there is only one user of a workspace.
Yep.
To this pattern. Now there is, from all the consumers, they will only have this leaser. They need to get them, and this is disposable. So if I don't dispose it, do we get a warning? There is an analyzer usually, but which should give a warning, which says, hey, yeah, we don't dispose this, although it's disposable. And now with the using, we have also automatically have to try finally in there, and it will always, even if there is an exception, even if there is one test failing, it's ensured that this lease of the workspace is returned, and then the next test can continue. And now we got rid of this ugly global thing that I always hated.
Yep. Have you run the test yet? Just to check.
Well, I think because we kind of now mixed two concepts, we I guess we'll do this off stream. We need to update quite a bit of code.
Oh gosh, yes,
to basically at the root, we now create our workspace leaser.
Yeah.
That takes a new CLI workspace, and we need to pass that around. Remove all usages of the MSBuild-Workspace, and now we have brought these two things together and can get rid of this global ambient MSBuild mutex that always troubled me anyway, because it was kind of, we had two objects that do belong together but weren't, and now they are.
And now they are. That's beautiful.
Definitely change my opinion about the naming here a lot.
Yes.
Not the acquire though. I think the acquire sounds perfect. The acquire sounds perfect because I acquired, now it's mine. And then I release or return or something like this, like a car rental thing. Maybe that's the rental, our CLI Workspace rental company account.com. I don't know.
Love it.
Cool.
Awesome. That was really cool. I guess we did a lot, and we didn't even go that much over time. I think we were considering that we did a lot of trivia.
That's also right, yeah. Well, it is within our what's it in statistics? The range, is that the standard deviation? Damn it! I should have paid
This
more
is not a
attention
standard
to
deviation.
I think we're within bounds.
We're within bounds. Absolutely, and it was really fun. So thank you, Stefan, also like for all of that. That was really good.
Well, that not only goes both ways, it gets all the ways. Also, thank you, and thank you to the audience for all the questions and the feedback.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and I guess we'll continue next time. But when is next time?
Ooh, yes. Next time we will, in a little bit less than a week, on Monday, November the 4th. Same time now. Daylight saving time. No more daylight saving time.
Yes.
And I guess very likely we're going to take a look at, because there is one thing left when it comes to formatting. Well, in our CS Purge
only one
builder. Well, we have kind of two issues, because the formatting we saw is a little bit off. But also, there is also a little tiny to do that we currently use, like for the indent characters, we just do a space. Cool. But what if we could read this from an editor config file, if present? And if not, then we just assume some default. So we're gonna dive a little bit into what an editor config is, and how editors like Writer and Visual Studio and VS Code and also non.NET editors and IDEs are using that, so you can, well, unify and codify your space indentation style for your entire project in just this one default common editor config file.
That sounds awesome. That sounds really great. I'm looking forward to that. So I hope also to see all of you on the 4th of November when we're going to look at editor configs. And also thank you from my side, everybody who is here with us. It's really nice to have such a big group sort of spending the evening with us and interacting and kind of getting excited because, yeah, that's just a joy. So thank you very much. And I hope you have a lovely rest of your day.
We'll be back.